So we're going to pick things up at a point that we've seen already. At least, when I first started doing Lou's route, I accidentally killed everyone. And then got to the island. Things happened with my recording and I reset. Let's finish this path with Bemelle and Margaret dead. The guide, however, is nowhere to be seen. I realize I don't recall seeing him lay down with everyone. It's likely he left us hours ago. There's a creeping silence here. Can't help but shudder at the hollow, aching feeling inside me. It refuses to relent. I shift my weight back and forth, unsure of what to do with myself. Memories of last night's harrowing journey flicker through my mind. I notice Lou begin to stir. Lou props himself up into a sitting position. He doesn't move to rise any further. My mouth opens, then shuts, and after a moment of fumbling, a word finally escapes.
Hello.
No reaction.
We should eat something soon.
Don't worry about me. I'm fine. I'm not hungry.
Lou's back is turned against me. He still hasn't gotten up out of the dirt.
You won't make it very far if you don't have something to eat.
Lou buries his head deeper into his knees as he curls into a tighter ball.
No thanks.
I don't know what to do. It's a lull of silence between us. A distinct rustling of the leaves around catches my attention. The guide appears, emerging from the thicket. Lou doesn't seem to notice as he's still facing away.
The Nixie will not tread on land in daylight. However, being near the shoreline is still dangerous. If you leave the center of the island, remain cautious. Before the sun sets, I will be in this area. It would be wise to meet me here before nightfall.
Motionlessly watch the guide. He considers his piece here finished. The guide turns around and returns to the forested area from whence he came. Lou meekly calls to me. I turn around to face him, though I don't speak. He's standing some distance away. He fidgets and glances over to the side, before returning his gaze to my eyes. He gestures for me to come closer. He begins to whisper at me, but he fumbles with his words, and I can't make out anything he says. I look at him inquisitively. Finally, he speaks up enough to be clear.
I'm sorry for what happened last night.
He speaks quickly as he looks up at me, eyes filled with sorrow. He shifts his focus downwards.
You would have been better off without me.
Do you mean when I had to stay behind?
Yes, you got caught up in the fire and it was a disaster.
It's all right. Nothing happened in the end. Besides, it isn't your fault that things turned out this way.
It was closer to being my fault than anyone else's. I wasn't supposed to be here, and all I did was get in the way. The guide was right about me. I knew from the beginning that it would be like this too. I never should have stayed.
Finishing his thought, he sniffles as he turns away. Suddenly, I feel a strong surge of emotions rip through me. Everything is falling apart, and I do not have the power to change this. Quietly, I speak. I'm going to speak with the guide. Ball my hands into fists, steel my will, and start advancing in the direction the guide went. Push my way through the branches and reach the other shore of the island. I see the guide with his back towards me. I didn't try to be quiet as I approached. He must have heard me.
You haven't asked me to leave. Does that mean I can speak to you?
This is going to be the same conversation. Ooh. I don't remember what the ideal is here. Sadness. Feel the tears well in my eyes. After all that's happened, the people who have died, how am I even supposed to talk to someone like him? He does not even seem concerned. He does not seem to care about anything.
Why can't I be more like you?
Okay, we've been through this path before. Appreciate you listening to me.
That is not your responsibility.
He gives no reply. The sigh, I focus on the path ahead. This is not over, and I have to be strong.
I'm going to see how everything is on the island.
I turn and leave. I feel comforted that, at least in a small way, I understand the guide better. I head through the wooded part of the island. Let's actually run this back. and get mad. I narrow my eyes at him. His empty expression is almost unbearable. The resolve leaves me. Cannot afford to lose focus now. I know this. Journey isn't over. We still need him. I have to put my emotions aside so that he does not leave us.
Do you wish to speak with me or not?
No, there isn't anything to say after all.
I turn away from him and start to leave. He makes no effort to stop me. What a waste. I could not even muster the will to speak to him. I need to be alone. Ah, and we got an achievement for that. Alone. It seems as though my wish to be alone will be granted. There's no sign that they will be returning. A cold chill somehow whips its way down my back, despite the calm of the air. Keep my gaze on the dark ground, taking a deep breath so deep it stings the back of my throat. I steadily empty my lungs. I try to empty my mind of all thoughts. I do not know what I'm doing anymore. Nothing is straightforward. I find something familiar and powerful in my thoughts and latch on. The mission. I have to try and focus on the mission. I need to be strong. My eyes dart back up. Is someone watching? I wonder if I'm afraid of being seen struggling like this, or if I hope I may not be on my own here. Doesn't matter. There is still nothing but the silent island. Time seems so indefinite around me, passing slowly. On this island, it almost seems to move slow as a stagnant pond. I shake my head, burying the thought. It's irrational, but I cannot bear to think of even old pond water. Gradually, my consciousness begins to include the world again. I do a few standard warm-up stretches, testing my mind and body. I don't know how long it's been, but I feel I have regained enough of my wits to continue on. I need to make sure everything is all right. I head through the wooded part of the island. There isn't anything that could be called a path, but I managed to pick my way through the bush quite well. I find that I've been pacing back and forth for quite some time. Okay, now we're caught up. Finished my check a while ago, so I have nothing left to do but aimlessly wander. Overcome with restlessness. This island may be safer than the bridges, but that is far than enough to ease my mind. I quietly sigh and decide to wait on my own. If I go back now, whoever I encounter will know that I don't want to be alone. That is more troubling than simply staying where I am. I sit down and silently listen to the ambience of the island as I wait for time to pass. I can only hope this will all end before I can no longer keep myself together. The sun begins to descend in the sky, and the light starts to fade in the fog. Any progress? I feel relieved that it is almost time to leave this island. A chill slips down my spine at the thought of what comes next, however. It isn't too long before I hear someone approaching from within the bush. It's the guide. He emerges from the bushes and steps out into the open.
Hello.
He doesn't respond to my greeting. Instead, he narrows his eyes, causing the tension to rise that much further.
Lou is gone. He's dead.
I nearly fall backwards from his words.
What?
Seconds tick by and the guide says nothing as my panic bounds higher, harder, and takes full control of my mind. This is not possible. No, this is a mistake.
We have to go look for him.
I would not claim this without good reason. Wait and you'll see. Night will fall and Lou will not come to meet us. We are the only two remaining.
Oh, an achievement unlocked. This just says sorry. I do sink to my ground at that. I do sink down to the ground at that. All my thoughts, the sound of my breath coming in and out, my very heartbeat forming two letters. No. 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 I cut my hands against my head. Why? I look up to the towering, stoic face of the guide, begging for an explanation. Something, anything but this. Gives no comfort. My tears start and stop from one moment to the next with my wildly tumultuous emotions. I am in brutal agony, bawling my eyes out and shouting indecipherably. But I am feeling nothing, laying in a cool void where everything seems inconsequential and so far away from me. Bemelle, Margaret, Lou. The heartbeat comes back. I have failed. I failed them. I failed every single one of them. I couldn't help anyone. I sniff back deeply, tears falling down my face once more. I manage a small miracle. I stand. The guide says nothing. I'm left with just my own thoughts and the heartbeat soundly drumming as we wait for the torturous bridges to surface. I lean against a tree, slowly reminding myself how to walk again as time runs by too fast or drags on too slow. A blanket of stars slowly creeps over the horizon. As the day truly descends into night, I still hold on to a desperate, unreasonable flicker of hope that eventually Lou will appear through the bushes, ready to continue the journey. He never does. My hope is blown out by the wind rushing across the lake. Suddenly there is a gurgling. The water parts as the bridges of Sinnlos rise, powered by some unnatural force, creaking like they might fall apart. We walk on to the wide open shore. Thick, inky water sloshes reluctantly off the boards, leading back into the lake until finally it stills. I feel an inexplicable pounding like a hammer in the back of my head, beating faster and heavier than my own heart. I clench my teeth to stop it from churning my stomach. Guide is quick to return to the bridges, making haste towards them. That gets my attention.
The island is no longer safe now that the sun has set. We must leave.
I understand what he is saying still. I return my attention to the lake. But for a moment I listen to the near silence of the water, steeling myself for what is to come. Then I place my feet firmly onto the dock. Against what my any natural instincts would advise me, I have returned to the misty labyrinth of bridges. Try to synchronize my inhalations with my footfalls to steady my breathing. The guide and I make no attempts to converse with one another. We are as quiet as the lake we are crossing. It feels as though barely any time has passed when I realize that half the night has crept by. We encountered a few sunken bridges which forced us to reroute, while other paths were rotten enough to make us stagger our steps. However, the biggest threat of all is eerily absent: the prowlers. I haven't seen more than shadowy glimpses of them down other paths. Even those may have simply been tricks of the fog. I feel I may be even more on edge tonight than the last. Ponder whether they're still weary from the consuming blaze that lit up the night yesterday, or if they are less dragging themselves across the bridges than usual because many have already gotten what they wanted. My skin crawls with a touch of icy fingers at the thought. I can't control the sharp shiver that travels down my spine. I look ahead towards the guide pensively before coming to a decision.
Where might the prowlers be?
He doesn't respond. Perhaps he didn't hear me. I debate whether to repeat my question or not before he suddenly replies.
Allowing others to die is an easy path to follow. It is keeping them alive that makes it so difficult for one to cross Sinnlos.
This is an answer to my question. Its vagueness feels intentional. Its avoidance doesn't stop the horrifying realization from coming to my mind. I still live, because they died. This isn't right. I try to swallow, but my mouth is a desert. It shouldn't have happened like this. I promised I would protect everyone, not benefit from their deaths. Every step on this damp wood, my feet feel more like lead. I feel the weight of them on my feet, like I am dragging their remains with me as they wonder why we could not help them. Body moves unbidden, unable to stop even with my thoughts in tatters. The notion that something might still be out there, that all of this could come to an end, calls me onward. After hours of navigating the complex maze of bridges, the faint silhouette of the shore creeps into view. My eyes widen at the sight. It's almost unbelievable that we could have come this far. The guide increases his pace and I cautiously follow suit. Near the very end of the bridges, I can smell the trees and the earth. Even through the fog, I could almost count the remaining bridges between us and land. Uh-oh, but between the end and us, a prowler appears. I eye the monster intently. It makes no move to leave us, so I turn to the guide instead.
Here, take my lantern. Once it's scared off, we'll make our way to the shore. It shouldn't be an issue with it so close by.
Guide says nothing. However, he extends his hand to accept my offer. I feel my body tense for a moment before relinquishing my light to the guide. It's not much farther. I'm sure we can make it. The guide slowly steps ahead. He and the creature brace for confrontation. I stay close enough to the guide's back to keep from being left behind in the darkness. He quietly whispers,
Be ready to run. Don't get left behind.
He then darts forward and launches the light directly at the prowler. Makes a snarling hiss as it retreats, defeated back into the black waters. Neither of us waste even a second looking forward. Looking back, we push forward. I race across the bridges, desperately trying to keep the guide's light-edged figure in clear sight. I run as fast as I can possibly manage without slipping beyond the boards. rope, we run across the entire way, spurred on by the shoreline rapidly approaching. Miraculously, I feel my feet plunge into dirt. I stumble forwards, nearly collapsing on the ground while trying to catch my breath. It feels as though I've come out of a long dream. We made it. After a moment of processing everything that just happened and pulling myself together, I rise fully to my feet and stand tall. I turn back towards the lake. Fog drifts across the empty, stagnant waters, as menacing as when I first laid eyes on it. I can't bear to tear my eyes from the sight. It's as though reality halts as I stare deeply at the surface. I shake away the sensation. I'm alive. I've made it across, and now I'll be able to unite the villagers and remove the brigadiers. But at what cost? My mind turns over itself. I can still faintly feel wet, rigid hands on my ankle. A ghostly reminder of the Nixie. I know the hands are not real, but that doesn't loosen their grip. My feelings simmer beneath my own surface, fighting for dominance. Gratitude, anger, relief, guilt, hope, and sorrow are battling inside me. They pull me in so many different directions at once that I can't even think. I don't know what to do. My turmoil abruptly ends by the sound of the guide's voice.
You can't stay.
I finally rip my eyes away from the lake. I fix them instead directly on the guide.
There is nothing left for you here. You must return to the world and leave this place behind.
All my words are stuck sorely in my throat. I'm completely parched and my mouth is threatening to close in on itself. He fills the silence once more.
I expect to never see you again.
The guide looks at me harshly, almost pleadingly, as he stares into my eyes. All I can offer is a slow, weak nod. I don't want this to be the way things are. I can't accept it. Consumed by a whirlpool of thoughts, I wasn't able to help anyone. I am entirely alone. As I continue to stare at the guide, tears well up in my eyes and threaten to spill over. He gives me no acknowledgement at all. I wipe the feeling from my face completely. I must continue on. I have no other choice left before me. On quaking legs, I march forward solemnly into the forest. I do not look back even once at the cursed lake during my retreat. However, I offer one last word.
Farewell.
I whisper softly, almost silently. It's a bitter farewell to all those who failed to escape the darkness and are forever lost. I can scarcely remember the rest of the trip. All I know is for sure is that I did arrive at Hammer in time to help. They were grateful to see me, for it was a desperate situation indeed. The urgency meant that my mind was occupied with other matters. I worked tirelessly to aid Hamir's own guards in forcing back the brigadiers. But during the moments of calm and when the sun went down, I would remember the lake. Villagers were alarmed when I arrived on my own, but it did not take them long to guess what must have happened to Bemelle. Soon their suspicions of what transpired were confirmed, as leaders in the community need to be made aware of what occurs on Sinnlos in case they have lost one of their own. The townsfolk were deeply sympathetic towards me after learning that I was there to witness 3 souls being lost to the dark waters. It was a slight comfort. The guilt at my failure remained sharp even still. I have not heard nor seen the guide since then. It will remain obscured in that realm of fog and fear, a mysterious light off in the distance that is ever out of reach of the real world. I know that I will return to my village soon. Despite my own feelings, I must not let them know how this journey has affected me. I need to be strong. There is no other way. Achievement, death. Pressed on in the face of pain and loss. And this is indeed the worst possible outcome. Where, Kika retreats into that stoic facade she puts up, keep her emotions in check. In check is too kind a word, keep her emotions suppressed, willingly. And all this pain and loss has just forced her deeper into that hole. Worst possible outcome, by far. If we don't get... It makes sense if we don't get Lou's affection point on his day 1 path, and we don't spend time with him. But yeah, we didn't even get the option to spend time with him. Lou decides not to continue on. And that leaves us alone. Part of me wonders if that happens normally in this case. I'm quite curious to see. Okay, now, with everyone alive, I straighten my arm out like a rod, blocking his progress past me. He stops, perplexed.
I am not afraid to stay behind as long as Bemelle can remain up front with you in your light.
Guy doesn't say anything, doesn't even blink. Margaret covers her mouth with her hand, muffling some sort of gasp. This time we saved everyone. We're gonna take Lou with us too. Bemelle smiles sadly at me.
One can always count on you, Kika.
The man, meanwhile, stands with his mouth agape, truly and genuinely shocked.
Well, what will it be?
Margaret sputters for a second, searching for words, but clearly unaware of what to say. Bemelle chimes in before she can get anything audible out.
I can stay in between you and the guide. I don't need to be right next to either of you. That way you won't have to worry about a repeat of what happened earlier.
I wouldn't refuse you being here.
Guy doesn't acknowledge them. He stares at the stranger. The man shakes under their attention.
No, really. I could just go on my own. It's fine.
I step closer to him, lending the support he seems to desperately need.
You do not need to go this alone. I will protect you.
Man stares at me, return his gaze, willing him to see my certainty. There need be no blood spilled tonight. Slowly the fear melts off of his face, replaced with something like resignation. Then he drops his gaze to the floor.
Okay.
All right.
I grasp his shoulder and turn to the rest of the group. This is my son.
You should get a head start, correct? You'll have to put some distance between us.
No! No, we don't have to do that.
Yes, we do.
Unnervingly, there's a hint of an emotion in the guide's usually empty voice. Anger. He starts to walk, not waiting for a reply. Margaret grits her teeth, eyes filling with tears, face flushed. She mumbles something in a small voice, something I'm just near enough to hear.
Why am I always so powerless?
Statement catches me somewhat off guard. Margaret? Powerless? She's not a mercenary to be sure, but she seems so certain of herself. And again, I don't know the reason she needs to cross the lake. Before I can decide whether I should respond, the tears fade from her eyes. Margaret takes a deep breath.
Please be careful.
She takes a few steps back, lingering near enough for Bemelle. Bemelle smiles, first at the stranger, and then at me.
Take care back here, all right? We'll all be together again when we reach the halfway island. It won't be too much longer now. We'll have a nice little camp out, and you can properly introduce yourself to us. Maybe even tell a real joke or two.
Man emits a nervous laugh and ducks his head. The prospect must not be enticing to him. With the stranger having pulled himself out of the conversation, Bemelle looks seriously at me.
I'm sorry to put you in even more.
Stop.
Bemelle shakes his head, still smiling.
I don't begrudge you at all. In fact, I'm glad you did. All I want is for you to remember that goal. Each of us, together, on the island, and then on the other shore, safe. This isn't about what our job is, or where other people need us to be.
I nod in response. Bemelle opens his mouth, then closes it. He swallows hard.
You two.
I'm surprised to hear his voice wavering slightly. He swallows again, then continues.
You two should look out for each other.
He takes a few steps back, as if to go, but his eyes don't leave mine. Margaret watches Bemelle approaching her, gaze flickering from him to me. Then suddenly she rushes back my way. Margaret flings herself into me, wrapping me up in a hug, crushing as her small shivering frame can muster. Oh!
Thank you for not leaving me behind either.
You're welcome, Margaret. Then she pulls away, turning around without seeing my reaction. The scent of lavender hangs in the air, but I can't tell whether from her hair or her clothes.
Watch out for yourself, too. Not just for everyone else.
I will.
Maybe that didn't happen when it was just Margaret. Maybe it was because I got a few points with her on the way up. Guide's figure disappears with only his lantern to lead the way. Bemelle and Margaret are finally forced to leave us behind and catch up with him. I watch him disappear into the fog, an odd feeling in the pit of my stomach. I cannot recall the last time I had difficulty seeing someone leave.
You should go after them.
I start. I almost forgot the man was there, standing right next to me. Now he looks at me with desperate eyes.
You don't need to do this.
What?
I'd rather know you returned to them safe, and that you all had a chance to make it back together.
I know. Pretty much see if it's still the same. I mean, especially with the long-haired one. You wouldn't look at anyone like that. Well, Mr. Shipper on deck here. I will stay. My certainty shocks him. Tell immediately that he has returned to his meeker self. Man starts to speak again, but I interrupt. Let's skip ahead. Ooh! The whispering from the lake, so faint after Bemelle's close call, now surges forth and grows nigh unbearable. Creatures teeming below the surface. I dare not speculate on what has them so excited.
Have you a name?
The man chuckles dryly.
Barely.
I don't really know what I am to take from that.
This time his laugh is more of a bark, quickly out and swallowed back up. Then he frowns.
Lou. Only 2 letters. So barely.
That's legitimately a good joke, though.
I see.
That's some good self-depreciating. Humor was generally not good. I say that knowingly engaging in it myself a fair bit of the time. Moving along. Now, where do we leave off here? I wonder who will still be left standing when this is truly all over. What? Everyone will be. Obviously, I say it firmly to end the discussion, but Lou's expression grows grave and unusually sympathetic.
You know that's not possible, don't you? Someone will go. You should focus on making sure it's someone else.
That's oddly direct of you.
You don't seem to be concerned with self-preservation.
That came out more hostile than I expected. He doesn't mind it.
True. But it's not the same for me.
It came out more hostile than intended. It came out with Kika's mom voice. You know, that scolding voice attitude. I don't know how I'm supposed to interact with a person like him. Making conversation is already not a strength I possess. Regardless, Lou echoing that sentiment was not something I had expected. The whispers from the lake, which had already grown, now speak faster and clearer. Individual words are almost audible. I'd like to be able to make them out if I knew the Nyx language. For a split second, I wish I did. Can you move forward? Ooh! As we push through the smoke, Lou wheezing for breath, beside me, figures emerge, Bemelle and Margaret. Oh! This is new. I look at the two, and the situation around them, baffled. None of the individual pieces make any sense. Until the reality of it hits me all at once, the guide is gone. Margaret pulls at the bridge. Her lantern is at her side. It's her glasses she's missing. Bemelle is off to the other side, lanternless, with only the flickering embers in the wind to keep him out of the darkness. I want to pretend that they're both fine, but they'll be capable of handling themselves. But I know that's just wishful thinking. Both of them are in danger. I don't know how the Nyxi feel about fire, how daring they'll be with it so close by. I can't assume this is an opportunity they will want to miss. I have to do something. I have to do it now. Without wasting another second, I run to Margaret's side, Lou in tow. I'm the one who put her in danger, and she needs me. I have to be there for her.
Margaret!
Margaret's head shoots up, eyes squinting through the smoke. Tears like ribbons gleam down her face. Whether they're because of smoke or panic, I don't know. Nearly at her side when a shout goes up from the other end of the bridge. Oh shit! A chunk of the bridge near Bemelle has vanished, collapsed into the water. In its place are Nyxi, trying to crawl their way up. Bemelle is backing away from them. That's only pushing him closer to the other edge. I check on Margaret again. She's on her feet and heading over to me, but she's standing now, and she has her lantern to keep those monsters at bay. I leave her, running to get my light to Bemelle. Bemelle stopped in the perfect center of the bridge, unable to now to move forward or back. Instead he turns to me, face pained in a way I've never seen from him. All I can do is wait for me to come and hope it's soon enough. As I approach, so does a Nyx. A Nyx larger than I knew they could be. It pulls itself out halfway out of the water, reaching for Bemelle. It grabs him, latches its arms around his torso. Oh god! Bemelle lets out an agonized scream, the Nyx's claws anchoring into his flesh. The creature lets itself fall into the lake, using its body weight to take Bemelle with it. I run faster, reaching my arm, my lantern out to him. Bemelle doesn't reach back. He just looks at me.
Don't!
He falls backwards into the lake, the Nyx's weight too much for him to resist. After a moment, the water stills. There's no sign of him. We really can't get to the lake with 3 people. It's not gonna happen. I stop, panting, still feet away from where Bemelle fell. Tears burn from my eyes.
No, he can't be gone.
Thing tugs on my arm. I panic, but it's Margaret. I gape at her. I can barely keep myself together.
What happened to the guide? Is he also?
My voice cracks in spite of myself. I don't know that I want to hear the answer, but it has to be said.
No, I don't think so. I couldn't see through the smoke and without my glasses, but I didn't hear anything.
How did this happen?
While we were running through the fire, the bridge shook. It knocked my glasses off. I bent down to pick them up. There were footsteps. Someone kept going, and then Bemelle asked if I was all right.
The tears return to her, and she wipes her nose on her sleeve.
He said he'd stay to keep watch while I couldn't see.
That sounds like Bemelle.
I'm so sorry.
It's not your fault. He tentatively touches my arm, wanting to help me but not knowing how. I don't say anything in response. I can't. The bridge trembles again, and I gather my wits just enough to get through this.
We need to leave. Which way did the guide go?
It sounded like he just went forward, and then I couldn't hear him anymore.
That will work.
Alright, now it's just us. He seems completely unaware of everything that's happened. The fire, the Nixie, the death. Step forward and yank him back to my side.
What are you doing?
Snap out of it, son. Going with me. Lynches at the unexpected contact and looks attentively to me, but he doesn't offer an explanation.
I'm sorry.
Let's move along, shall we? Alright, now we're back where we
You
stopped.
won't make it very far if you don't have something to eat.
He buries his head deeper into his knees as he curls into a tighter ball.
No thanks.
I wonder when the last time he ate even was. Considering where we found him, he could have been out over Sinnlos for more than a day. Yet, he has nothing with him.
Alright, I think at this point, we'll save. We'll keep our save. We'll keep our save here. Now I think, as we've seen, it's probably the same, mostly the same with just Bemelle. I wonder about that. If that's what happens to Bemelle when he comes back for us with Lou in tow, does that mean that losing Margaret leaves us alone with Lou to get back there? I suppose we could try that, but for now I just want to jump back to the main menu a second. And ooh. That's a fire CG right there. I dig that big time. Looks like we still have more to get for Lou here. But I really dig that. So we're halfway through this video. And I'm going to take a brief break. Intermission time. And when we come back, we'll see what other paths we can explore from the island intermission to day 2 with Lou and Margaret in tow. Let's just see what happens if there's just Bemelle. Press on to meet him, towing Lou along beside me. Bemelle's absolutely beaming when he notices us, and I can't help but match the look of relief on his face as I approach him.
What happened?
Take a moment to steady my breathing after getting the most pressing question on my mind out.
A group of prowlers were in our path. His solution to that was throwing an open flame at the damned monsters. He knew he'd be setting this entire place ablaze. It didn't matter.
Did the guide leave you behind? Is he gone?
Begin tersely at first, but as I speak I can't help the worry leaking into my voice.
The guide is not a man you need to worry about out here. I chose to stay back. There was plenty of light to go around thanks to him.
I balk at him.
That is not a plan, Bemelle. You need a lantern to make it. What if we didn't find each other? Do you realize how easily you could have gotten yourself killed?
That is very reckless of you, Bemelle, but appreciated. The statement comes out as shrilly as I clench my fists in frustration. Bemelle mirrors my anger as he barks back at me.
I've seen what happens to those left to catch up, Kika. They don't. I wasn't going to keep running this time and leave you behind.
Is that a mirror to what we did to Margaret? When we turned and left her behind accidentally. Swallowing my retort, I close my mouth and look at him solemnly. From when I sigh, this isn't the time for a discussion after what Margaret went through. I can't blame him for the conclusion he came to. Suddenly the bridges began to quake once more beneath our feet.
We need to leave. Which way did the guide go?
Well, maybe we can get out of here with Bemelle
I
in tow.
don't know for sure, though he went off in that direction. The fog overtook him, but I didn't see him turn.
That will work. Lou?
Look around for him, realizing he's not with me anymore. Let go of him, and there he is. Where to pick one? Bemelle's doubtful. Whose gaze is flickering down either path? A whistle.
It came from...
They're underwater
We
creatures.
should go right, I think. To where the sound came from.
Sorry, and skips through with voice. Oh! Yeah, we can make it out of here with Bemelle and Lou. And whoever's nowhere to be seen. Alright. I suppose we can explore that too. So I'll save this game too. That gives us another bit of information to peruse through. We're gonna pick up on the path with Lou and Margaret. It's not your fault. My words come out hollow and empty. I mean what I say, but I cannot find the energy to make it seem convincing.
It was closer to being my fault than anyone else's. I wasn't supposed to be here, and all I did was get in the way. But I never should have stayed.
Finishing his thought, he sniffles as he turns away. I suppose let's stick with Lou. Move along.
I know
Oh,
you don't want
earn some
anything to happen
points.
to anyone else. That is admirable.
And we'll come. Just us. I think this is a personal point. I'm glad. Okay. Now we wait. Ooh, a piercing whistle breaks my concentration. It is out of place enough to catch the attention of the guide, the Nixie. Lou effortlessly jumps out of the tree he was hiding in and lands in the sand. He stands alone and undefended. His face is serious. What is he thinking? I frantically look between the group of Nixie and Lou. The creatures are still as statues, as their fixation on Lou never wavers. I wonder if a part of their minds is telling them the opportunity looks too good to be true. Lou, apparently unsatisfied with their hesitance, takes a step even closer while speaking angrily.
Do you want someone or not?
The spell keeping them in place breaks, and some of the Nixie abandon the guide to slink towards Lou. I cease standing as well and rush over to Lou, lantern in hand.
Wait!
His shout stops me in my tracks. And amazingly, the prowlers halt their advance as well. I did not realize they were such cautious creatures.
Watch the guide. I'll be back by the fire soon. Let me...
Oh. Didn't mean to cut you off there. I thought you were done. Despite my worries for him, I understand. He's not in complete danger, and we do need to protect our way across. I believe that Lou is capable of handling the situation. I look to our lead. Even fewer Nixie are around him as they all curiously inspect Lou. The guide glances away from them for a single heartbeat to make eye contact with me, and then it's over. He wordlessly swings his staff out at the Nixie still near his side. The tense silence becomes filled with screeching hisses as they retreat back to the water, freeing the guide of any immediate threats. Unaffected and without appreciation, he gives an order to Lou.
Return to the fire.
Lou scoffs at his response, mumbling a reply of his own.
I was going to.
God, Dad. That was the first time I'd seen him speak directly to the guide. It's doubtful he would have been able to make it out with the distance between them, but Lou looks satisfied enough. His relaxed state is premature as the Nixie are deeply focused on him now, ready to attack at the first opening. Lou takes a few deep breaths as he steels himself to run. Without a hint of warning, I burst forward as he starts to move. Nixie leap right into the now illuminated area. Pain and panic overtake them. Lou looks over his shoulder at the sound of their hisses. He smirks slightly as he watches the prowlers abandon the chase and flee. After returning back near the fire and bathing in its light, he faces me fully and gives me a small, shy wave. I put my free hand over my chest at the sight, gladdened that he's safe. I don't truly have the luxury to think much of what just happened, however. Guide is fine. There are no Nixie in his immediate vicinity, but they're beginning to re-emerge already. We're not out of this yet. Gripping my lantern, I watch over everything and everyone in sight, vigilantly. Oh, and the bridges? Now. After alerting Margaret, she gives her all to hurl the flame ahead of us while avoiding setting the bridge itself on fire. Very good, Margaret. Alright, move on. I quickly straighten myself out and mull over our current situation. We start to consider how we are going to travel now that we only have 2 lanterns.
Well, the 3 of us could walk together. If there's one person close by, I can't imagine it would make much of a difference having another. Furthermore, I believe we've all taken enough risks for each other already for this to not be a problem.
Margaret, your consideration touches me. I smile gratefully at her.
I think it would be fine if we all stayed together.
Okay, we'll do that then. Thank you.
As we start moving forward once more, I close in on Lou, who's walking ahead. He turns his head at my approaching footsteps.
I wanted to thank you for earlier. It got the guide out of a difficult situation, and you still watched out for yourself, like you promised.
Lou looks abashed over the praise, though he's clearly happy about it. He scratches the back of his neck nervously.
Thank you for saying that, and for what you did when I was running back towards the fire.
I offer him a warm smile.
It was no trouble, truly. If you don't mind, I would be glad if we could assist each other on the journey, rather than have to do everything on our own.
He smiles and chuckles non-committally. His laughter trails off into the empty air without an answer. I wonder if perhaps he's still worried about relying on others for help. Pushing him at this point would be futile and inappropriate, so I allow the conversation to die. With nothing more to say, Lou moves back up. We continue along the bridges. The only sound is the hollow echo of our footsteps and the whispering of the water as it sloshes against the wood. This new? Nope, this is very new. The stillness doesn't reassure me. Instead, it rings through me like a blaring warning bell, my instincts picking up on the all-too-familiar movements of calm before the storm, the peace before the battle breaks. My fear is realized only a few moments later. Far in the distance, I hear the wet smacking crunch of another set of steps. I peer back to see a prowler slowly following us with its distinctive wobbling gait. It's possible that it has been following behind us since we escaped the shore, and only now drawn near enough to notice. Considering our amount of light has shrunk so noticeably since that first night, it doesn't surprise me that it would follow so persistently. All we can do is keep a close eye on it and hope it doesn't draw too close. I glance over at Lou, who's been rather quiet for quite some time, as though he's deeply entranced by his own thoughts.
Lou.
He jerks nearly imperceptibly as he's brought out of his reverie. Briefly looks my way, only to dart his eyes left and right like someone trying to remember what's real upon waking from a disorienting dream. I feel slightly apologetic and try to smile reassuringly at him. Instead of acknowledging me, he turns his gaze back to the wood. A moment passes between us, and then he raises his eyes up to mine again and beckons me to come closer. After I reach his side, he surveys the other two party members. Once he seems satisfied with their positions, he draws in towards me and speaks in an almost whisper.
You wouldn't mind hearing a little about me, would you? I'd like to talk to you about it.
Please do. He grins at me. However, his face quickly falls. He has to look away as he prepares to open up.
I was the black sheep of my village. I wasn't ever able to accomplish anything, and it felt like I never belonged. I couldn't go anywhere else. It wasn't possible for someone like me. I didn't exactly want to leave, though. I only wanted to feel I was worthwhile, that I was wanted, needed. I tried again and again to be that to someone, but it was pointless.
When we become that to him, that's when he decides to stick around. He chuckles bitterly.
Like myself.
I pointedly give him a frown. He ducks his head further.
You probably already know that much about me by this point, huh? I'll move on. During one of my attempts to be of any use, I made some mistakes. I got caught by people who threatened my village. I didn't have the nerve to stand up to them. I put everyone I knew at risk. I had a chance to make up for what I did, but I didn't take it. And now this is where I am.
His face falls to the depths of despair.
The worst part is, the longer I'm here, with you, the less I regret it. No matter what happens to them or me, I wouldn't ever want to change my decision to go with you. I'm such a selfish coward. At least I'm embracing that now.
After 1 week's self-derisive laugh, he sighs in defeat. I want to help Lou. I wish he could see his own worth. However, my mind is distracted. Something in his story strikes me. When we first found him, he was heading in the opposite direction of us. He must have started from the other shore. There's only one village located in that direction.
Lou, are you from Hemmer? That's where I am heading. It's currently under siege, and I've been asked to assist in pushing the Brigadiers back.
He wordlessly stares at me. His expression is clouded with unreadable emotion. After a moment, he turns to the ground and murmurs softly.
No specifics. I'm sorry.
He tries to sound lighthearted, but it's clear that he's shaken. I try to offer him a sympathetic smile.
I understand. The people there will be all right. I will make sure of it.
That's good.
Lou acts as though he chose to cross Sinnlos only for his own sense of self. However, I silently wonder if there's more to it than that. Was he crossing to find help on the other side? Despite my curiosity, I couldn't ask him to elaborate. It's clearly a difficult topic for him, and I already agreed to not get specifics out of this. I reach over to him and gently stroke his back from the nape of his neck slowly down his spine. He shivers at my touch, though it is in no way from discomfort. I caress him, and he allows me to. Pet the Lou. Cherish the Lou. Alright, let us move along. Oh, okay. We're in uncharted territory, so to speak. All I know is that it's far too close for comfort. The guide stops abruptly, bringing us through an awkward halt. Luckily, there are no impacts between the three of us.
Stay where you are.
Ooh, my eyes are drawn to the guide. He's making small movements, cautiously pressing his foot into the boards in front of him at different spots. Could something be wrong with the bridge itself? My theory is proven correct almost immediately.
The boards ahead are unstable. They may break when stepped on.
Is there another path?
This is our path. Move slowly and do not have two people on the same board at a time. I will cross first. When I find a stable section, I will inform you. Then you will follow my lead.
It doesn't allow us time to answer before darting forward. His steps are light, but beneath him the wood creaks loudly. After it is well established that we will be unable to cross normally, my chest tightens with worry. I can almost feel the prowler drawing closer with each passing second.
Why are the bridges this way? They can be burned into ash and will still rise the next nightfall. And yet this spot is less stable than the rest. It is strange.
It certainly is.
The unnatural black water has a great deal of magic within. That is the most reasonable source of the bridges. If this maze is formed without an intelligent creator, that would explain its treacherous nature.
Without an intelligent creator, meaning just with base emotions at the heart of it? Powerful. Who doesn't say anything on the topic, merely staring ahead. Guide breaks his cautious steps, testing the security of the bridge.
Where I am now is solid. You only need to reach this position.
Now that the guide has successfully crossed the bridge to a stable point, the rest of us recognize that we have little time to waste. The haphazard, squelching footsteps behind us are only getting louder and louder. Lou moves ahead of us onto the strange bridge. Each make our way carefully towards the other side. The slowness of the pace makes it seem so much longer than it really is. When Lou finally makes it to the other side to safety completely unharmed, an outpouring of relief overwhelms me. I don't dwell on the feeling as all my focus is drawn once more to my own crossing. Boards creak ominously beneath my feet, almost like they are protesting against my footsteps. Whoop! And with a shuddering crash, one of the boards snaps beneath my feet. Oh shit. Before I even realize what's happened, I feel the cold waters of Sinnlos close over me. The air in my lungs bursts out in an involuntary scream. Nothing but bubbles in the murky water. The hushed silence of the air is replaced by the dull rumble of water rushing into my ears. The waters are so dark I can barely tell which way is up. Only the almost oily sensation of the lake's heavy water flowing past me gives me a sense that I'm rapidly sinking. I thrash my arms in a desperate attempt to slow my descent into that horrible blackness below. A vice-like grip seizes my leg, halting my feeble attempt at escape. Terror grips my heart just as tightly as I kick downward with all my might at the monster I know lurks under me. I have no idea if my assault made a difference, but miraculously I feel the hold leave my leg. With renewed hope spurring me on, I frantically claw my way back to the surface. Like I'm escaping a burial, my head bursts free and I eagerly gulp down lungfuls of life-giving air. Then I work my way back to the bridge and cling to the wood with both hands. But when I try to hoist myself up, out of the water, the board beneath my hands bends. I realize at once that if I apply any more pressure to it, it will snap just like the other one. Weakly clinging to the edge, I exert tons of my energy, dragging myself through the clinging water beside the path to find a sturdier piece. The wood pierces into my fingers and leaves deep splinters into its wake. After dragging my drenched body, feeling the whisper of cold hands just beneath my feet, reaching to drag me back into the depths, the boards finally grow sturdier. With all my strength, I push to haul myself out of this void. The viscous liquid does not take well to resistance. Moving up causes it to tighten around my waist like a massive Nixie hand, keeping me in. With the final effort, I managed to tear myself free and practically hurl myself across the wooden planks. Oh, Jesus. Exhausted from the effort, I shakily bring myself to my feet. Once I feel the disorientation of my narrow victory pass, I search the surroundings to get a feel for where I am now. Dread fills the pit of my stomach as I realize that I've returned to the opposite side of the unstable bridges. I look across to see Margaret and the guide, who view the scene in shock. Uh-oh. I stand there, dazed for a beat, before opening my mouth to speak. A splash interrupts me. I instinctively take a step backwards and look at the water. It's Lou! He's fallen in! Oh shit! Oh shit! A ragged gasp escapes me and I rush to his aid. I thrust my hand out towards him before he starts to sink. He takes it and grips me tightly. I start pulling with every single muscle in my body. Unfortunately, I'm fighting against much more than just the water this time. The strength of the Nixie is too great. I can't bring him up. I can only keep him from going further down.
Bring the light here!
Beg them with frantic eyes, then return my full attention to Lou. If I lose sight of him for more than a moment, I fear I'll lose him.
You'll be alright. You only need to hold on.
In the lake, the disturbed water around the heads of the Nixie distorts their visages into cruel, twisted grins. They pull harder on Lou and my grip on him slips incrementally. I listen for the sounds of creaky boards. I have to be coming. I have to be. Repeat these words over and over again, chanting them and desperately trying to believe them. Lou's voice bubbles out. It's difficult to parse in the cacophony of chaos surrounding us. However, the final part is clear.
Behind you!
Oh! That Lou painfully rips his arm from my grasp. The only bit of color against the murky lake disappears into the darkness. I scream towards him, but it's too late. He's already long past, long lost to the inky depths of the lake. Tears sting in my eyes. Not allowing his warning to fall on deaf ears, I whip my head around to find the prowler standing over me, torso hanging over its hips at an impossible angle as it leers at me. My jerky movement startles it into recoiling back. I use this opportunity to swiftly roll out of its reach. I hop back onto my feet and unsheath my sword, ready to fight. The prowler tenses the few strings of sinewy muscle on its bony frame, lowering its posture. As it starts to inch closer to me, I give it a hateful glare, digging in my heel to steady my footing. Before it gets within Orin's reach, I take aim and strike. The tip of my blade grazes its hand and the creature hisses violently. Pure white liquid like the tears falling from its eyes seeps from the wound, dripping into the cracks of the wood. Despite this, the prowler does not retreat, continues circling me, creaking more violently than ever. Finally, the light from this guide's staff pours over the scene, and the glow envelops me. The prowler turns and leaps back into the lake. But the adrenaline was the only thing keeping me together. That cut, I fall to my knees and start to bawl. He was right there in front of me. I could do nothing to help him. He's gone. Margaret bends down and grasps my shoulders lightly. She brushes closer to my face and whispers softly.
I'm glad you're safe.
I peer down and my eyes trail to the edge of the bridge where Lou was lost. My focus isn't unnoticed.
Do not go near there. The Nixie did not expect someone to be in the lake without their doing, much less two. You were very lucky. Anyone who draws close to the water now will die.
I feel like an empty husk.
Why?
It's one word, and it's the only one I can manage. He was safe on the other side only a moment ago, but
He jumped into the lake himself.
I stare up at the guide, utterly shocked by his scoffed statement. I put my mouth to speak. However, it hangs agape as I struggle to find the words. How could he do that? Why would he do that? Is that the reason they released me? Because they were trying to grab him instead? Margaret places a gentle hand on my back in an attempt to comfort me. The guide still looks unhappy with the situation. He stoops down to be at my eye level.
We have to move on. If he wanted you to survive so much that he threw himself to the Nixie, then you should respect that. Relight your lantern.
The man makes a good point. I gaze at him with empty eyes, then let my gaze fall back to the boards. My lantern lies deserted where it landed after I reached for Lou. I refused to relinquish it while in the lake because I had the nerve to hope I would make it back. If I had known it would be at the cost of his life instead, I'm not sure what I would have done. But I have an idea. I don't move. The guide extends his long, slender arm and retrieves the lantern. He gingerly offers it to me. I awkwardly pick up my sword and return it to its hilt. My limbs shake as I take the proffered lantern. Margaret takes out her matches and offers them to me since I'm soaked from the previous skirmish. I take the match from her hand and swipe it to ignite. I relight my lantern. It glows with light once more. Without another word, the guide stands. I force myself up to my feet to join him. He turns around and faces forward, his coat swaying behind him. Carefully, he makes his way across the unstable boards once more. I watch the guide listlessly as he crosses. I can hear Margaret's voice vaguely in the background. She's speaking gently to me. However, no matter what she's trying to say, her words just come out muffled and distant, like someone underwater. The guide makes it across and turns to face us. It's our turn now. Margaret and I tread onto the bridges, carefully stepping over the broken section. This time, no boards snap. We make it to the other side in one piece. Bittersweetness overcomes me. Even though I'm relieved that no one else succumbed to the same fate as Lou, the previous scene still echoes in my mind. It was brutal. I wipe a tear from my eye. Why couldn't it have held firm the first time? We spend a moment looking at each other, and then at the boards, not knowing what to say. After a pause, the guide starts walking again. We must follow. Continuing on or staying behind to be with Lou eternally are the only options. The guide is right. He wouldn't have wanted that. I keep walking down the path, lost deep in foggy despair. First Bemelle, and now Lou. It's difficult to come to terms with. The sickening feeling of it all sinks to the bottom of my stomach and settles like thick bile. Being here feels as though I'm at the swirling center of an endless nightmare. I reach down to lightly touch the pouch that houses the shell. All I have left is to keep moving forward with heavy steps until this is truly, finally over. I caress the pouch and force back the gush of tears that threatens to return. Eventually, the guide slows to a stop in front of us. He waits, looking forward quietly before turning around to face us.
Take my staff. I will need your lantern. Our path is blocked.
I clutch the lantern tightly.
Are you going to throw it?
No, it may not be poised to attack yet. I will blow out the light and draw nearer. Then I will relight it once I grow close enough to the prowler. That should force it to retreat without having to risk losing one of our remaining lights.
I'm surprised at how desperate the plan sounds. However, I don't object to it. I have no alternative to suggest.
All right.
I offer my lantern and he trades me his staff.
Stay here. The prowler will not act rashly as long as it sees no light close by. It will be on guard if you approach.
I'm conflicted over the matter, but then the guide stares at me intensely. That gaze leaves no room for argument. I take the guide's staff. Margaret and I huddle around it together and watch as he disappears into the misty darkness. The two of us dare not speak. We wait in tense silence. Suddenly I perk up at what they think is the sound of the guide's voice. The sound comes abruptly, startling me. Worry nags at me as I wonder what could have happened. Margaret looks at me unsure and slightly bewildered. Let's try to help. The guide's silhouette returns before me. Once I draw closer to him, I notice that he's standing oddly still. I look past his shoulder towards the prowler, and the air is snatched from my throat. Despite being partially obscured by fog, the figure isn't a twisted black mass. It's a familiar, vibrant color.
Lou?
What?
Kika?
What?